Hey guys, it's Luke Javersack with gslukedfs.com, bringing you guys a preview for the WGC Workday Championship happening this year at Concession Golf Club, which is a little bit different. But I'm excited. It's the first tournament of the 2021 Florida Swing, as we call it. There'll be golf tournaments for the next month in Florida, which is my hometown, so excited for that. And this is going to be earlier than normal due to the WGC being relocated from Mexico City to Florida. That's due to COVID, kind of the restrictions that happen with international travel. So they're going to keep it in the U.S. for this year. It'll be the only time that we play the WGC here in Florida. So yeah, it's a little bit of a special treat this year for us. The WGC is going to have a 72-man invitational-like field. 48 of the top 50 world-ranked golfers, actually. That only excludes Paul Casey and Tiger Woods. And we're also going to see a lot of the top Euro stars as well. So we're going to be seeing people like Thomas Dietrich, Matthew Fitzpatrick, who we saw last week, was one of my top picks and actually played really well at Riviera. So pat on the back for that. And yeah, so there's not going to be one weak name in the field. It's going to be 72 of the best golfers, and there's going to be no cut as well. So all the golfers will be playing all four rounds, which may be music to some of your ears. You don't have to worry about that pesky cut, but it'll be a treat. So the returning champion is Patrick Reed. He won last year when it was down in Mexico. So not necessarily something or anything to glean from there, but Patrick Reed is our winner from last year. But the course this year is Concession Golf Club. That's in Bradenton, Florida. It's a par 72. It's 7,400 yards and 74 yards as well. And it's designed by Jack Nicklaus. It's a relatively new course. It was founded in 2006, and it has Bermuda greens. So a little bit different than what we've been seeing over the last few weeks. But they are going to be Bermuda this time around, which is very characteristic of a Florida course. And we'll discuss some of the good putters on Bermuda here in a second. So to go off of what we've seen at Concession before, there's actually only been one sanctioned event that we know about there, and that is the 2016 NCAA Championship, which is actually won by Bryson DeChambeau. So something to keep in mind. I don't think there's necessarily really much to look into there. The course probably played a lot differently than it is now, and Bryson DeChambeau is a lot different golfer now than he was back then. So some observations. So because this course hasn't been played before, all of my data is actually coming from observations and a little bit of speculation. We don't have a regression model or anything to base a lot of our decisions off of this week, but it's a very prominent golf course. There's a lot of videos that have been made on the golf course, and there's a lot of exposure out there. So I spent the good part of today actually going through the golf course, actually going through each hole specifically to figure out how it's going to play. So here's some of the general observations that I made. First of all, the fairways are very large. So they're like 50 yards wide on average, which for a PGA Tour player is almost a given. They're going to hit them about 80-90% of the time. So it's not necessarily going to be that huge of an issue this week if you aren't the most accurate driver. But there is water on literally every single hole. There's also sand around most of the greens, so you really can't be missing your iron shots. The course is also going to play longer than it normally does on tour, so it's a 7,400-yard course, but that's for a par 72. There's a very good chance that they take the par 72 and make it a par 70 this week, taking a couple par 5s and calling them par 4s for these PGA professionals. And at 7,400 yards, that would be a task. That would be one of the longest, if not the longest, courses on tour. So that's something to keep in mind. Even if they don't make it a par 70, it's still an extremely long course. Even though it is long, one thing that will help the golfers this week is the fact that there isn't much rough. It is a private course. It is more of a resort-style course. So there isn't going to be that super lush rough that you see at some courses, and that is something to note this week. So if you're missing fairways, it's not necessarily going to be as penal as at other courses. So with all of that in mind, the three key stats that I narrowed it down to this week would, number one, be driving distance. So due to the wide fairways, most of your advantage off the tee is going to be with distance rather than with your accuracy. It's also going to help you score on the par 5s. And it is a par 72 for now, and even if they make it a par 70, that distance is going to help you score on those long par 4s as well. So it's necessary either way. And there's also a lot of water that you can carry at this golf course. A lot of the protection of this golf course is with the water, and it doglegs on most holes. There's a lake on one side. But if you're long enough, you can actually cut off a lot of the hole by carrying the water. I expect players like Bryson to try this kind of strategy, and could be advantageous. The next stat I'm focusing on this week is going to be shots gained approach. So shots gained approach is almost always the most important stat at every golf course. Usually when we're looking at the regression model, we're doing it on a relative basis. So we're looking at shots gained approach compared to other weeks where shots gained approach is being factored. But this week specifically, I think it's going to be a more important course for shot gained approach. The reason why I say this is that it's a Jack Nicklaus design. Jack Nicklaus is notorious for making harder golf courses, and here at Concession, it seems like all of the protection is around the greens. You have bunkers that look pretty vast and expansive. You have some greens that look like they have some undulation to them, and being able to place your approach shots is going to be paramount. I expect the easy to hit fairways to also make approach play a little bit more important. The course is definitely going to be a second shot golf course, as most Jack Nicklaus designs are. So hitting the ball close to the pins is going to be how you differentiate yourself this week. So I'll be weighting approach play a lot more than normal this week. And the last stat that I am really incorporating this week would be opportunities gained. So opportunities gained, or birdie or better percentage, and that's because I do expect this course to play relatively easy. Being that the fairways are pretty wide, being that the greens can't be too complex because there are just amateur members that are playing on it, and given that there's not much rough, I expect the score to be around minus 20 by the end of the week, maybe even a little bit better than that. Especially with the no cut, you're going to get a lot more players with a good chance to go low, and I expect birdie or better percentage to be very important. To win a golf tournament at minus 20, minus 25, you have to be a player that can actually go that low. So that'll be definitely something I keep my eye on this week. With all that being said, let's talk about who I like. So number one would be Rory McIlroy. He's my spend up option for this week. So Rory has gained 0.84 strokes per round off the tee. That's since the restart of golf last June. And his real issue, though, has been his irons, where he's only gaining 0.11 strokes per round. Now, if you know how Rory plays, you know that's not typical of Rory McIlroy. Of recent, here at the Waste Management Open, he did gain 1.8 shots on approach, which is a lot better than he had been before. And if he's able to replicate that this week, I expect him to be towards the top of the leaderboard. Now, he did just miss the cut at the Genesis. He just ended his league-leading cut make streak, but I expect him to go on a new streak essentially right away. I don't think the missed cut is going to bother him too much. I expect his price to be lower as such. I expect some people to fade Rory because they think that he may have lost his game or something, but I'll be all over Rory. When Rory comes in at lower ownership, a lower price, and on a golf course where driving distance is paramount, I think there's a lot going for him this week. So I'll be playing him in fantasy. I may even bet on him. We'll have to see what his number comes in at, but I love Rory this week. My second man in is going to be Patrick Reed. So Patrick Reed has been gaining 0.7 shots per round off the tee this year. And that's in the 2021 year, a little bit less of a sample size, but that's outstanding. I think it's important to note that he's been going through swing changes, and ever since then, he's been hot off the tee and also gaining over half a stroke with his irons per round, which is unbelievable. I mean, gaining over a stroke per round ball striking is exceptional stuff. And that's after swing changes, as I mentioned. He won the first week after making those swing changes, and honestly, I expect him to build on top of that. He didn't play the last 2 weeks after his big win and a little controversy that we saw, but that's going to just keep people off of him. They're going to fade him. They're going to think that he hasn't been working on his game, but if I had to bet, he's been trying to implement those swing changes even better. And if he's going overlooked, he could be a sneaky play this week. So I really do like Patrick Reed. My building block play this week, more of my core play for this week is Sungjae Im. So Sungjae Im is someone that hasn't played recently as well. He's taken the last few weeks off, which is very rare for someone like Sungjae, but I love how he's been playing. He's gained over half a stroke off the tee since the restart, which is definitely of note, and he's historically amazing on Bermuda greens. His major win was at the Honda Classic, which also is infamous for having pretty difficult Bermuda greens, so expect Sungjae to putt well this week. And he's also shown recently flashes of great iron play. He's historically a great iron player, and recently he's shown that ability. if he can build on that, I expect him to have a top 10 finish with potential even upside to win. Sanjay's a great player, and it's just a matter of time before he gets that next win. My value play this week is Corey Connors. So Corey Connors is one of the best ball strikers in the world. Year in and year out, he has been for the last 4 or 5 years. The only issue with him is his putter, and honestly, I can live with that this week. He's gaining 0.6 strokes per round off the tee. Outstanding. He's also gaining 0.55 per round on approach. Both those are elite numbers, and I think he's just a safe play this week. So he's my value play, top 25 play almost for sure, and he has that top 5 upside. If he finds that putter, he could definitely see himself up there. And my last play for this week, my diamond in the rough, is going to be Thomas Dietrich. So someone I've definitely never written about before, definitely never touted before, but he's the longest full-time Euro in the field. He drives the ball 320, 330 yards. He would be a top 10, top 20 driver on the PGA Tour, and he's had winning upside. He has multiple wins over this last year on the European Tour, and he's known as an elite iron player as well. Dietrich's main bugaboo, we can say, would be his putter. He has a lot of issues with it, but he also gets hot from time to time, and that's when Dietrich takes down a tournament. Now, while he's not a safe play by any means, Dietrich, if he gets hot, could win a tournament, and I think that's what you're looking for when you're looking down the board. People that have that upside, you understand that they're not a very safe play, but they can get you there, and I think Thomas Dietrich is that this week. So that's what I got for you guys. That's all for this week's preview. I'm going to be doing a live this Wednesday, going over some of the weather patterns that are coming in for this weekend, how to impact play, whether there will be an advantage for the morning rounds, the afternoon waves, all that kind of fun stuff. So look forward to that. It'll be my first live video. Have a good one.